Okay, so we have a problem.
Oh shit! What is it?
Well,
That's not a good way to start.
there's a chase, bro. Like one of the things that really truly are hallmarks of like growing up in SoCal is being addicted to these chases, bro.
Oh, car chases, right, right.
Homie, she's like she was in a van and then she got out of the van and went in her homie's car,
Uh,
and now they're in another car.
where
And
are they at right now? What freeway are they on? Are they on the streets or
they're
what?
not, dog. They got off. They're on Warwick and Martin Street in LA. It's like right
Shit.
next to Cal State LA.
Uh,
Dog, it's so
it is.
hardcore. The car chase live is great. One of my favorite guitarists in the world is from Brighton.
Oh yeah, who's that?
Yeah, his name is Rabia Masad. There are actually pics with his afro on it. He's this really really awesome guy. He's a partner in the guitar company Chapman Guitars. Rob Chapman. They call him
Hmm.
Chappers.
Mhm.
But yeah, Brighton, I'm down, dog. You know, I think Mary
Yeah, me too.
Spender is also there. She's also a guitarist that I love. So
Yeah. Right,
let's roll, dog. The study
Yeah.
comes to Brighton.
Uh-huh.
Let's just do that.
Traveling band, traveling show. That sounds cool.
So we're doing something a little different this week. We're doing articles and a little bit of
Some videos.
film. Yeah, because I think it's like what part of the fourth week of the semester people are sick of reading.
Yeah.
They come back seventh week, but
they rebound. Yeah.
But fourth week. So I was thinking, let's we both were thinking let's give them some film as well as some articles. All right, let's do it. You think we can do it?
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. So start with articles, right?
Yeah, man. Why not?
All right, cool. So first one up on the list, we have from CNN. This is tragic. Obviously, 27 students have been kidnapped from a college in Nigeria. And it's a growing trend, unfortunately.
Yeah. And when you read this article, don't be confused. This is a part of Nigeria that uses the word Niger. But it is not the country Niger, which is a different country, of course, than Nigeria. The kidnapping of children, especially the kidnapping of school children, is one of the primary means of asymmetric warfare by terrorist organizations throughout Africa. And they target these places where the kids live at the schools. And this story here is they ran up into the dormitories of the teachers where they had their families with them. Then they took the children at gunpoint to get them to show them where the dormitories of the students were. And then they kidnapped 27 students. 70 students were just
They killed one boy too.
Wait, say it again.
They killed one boy as well. They don't show that in the title, but they killed one boy as well.
It's horrible, man. It's horrible. But I it's really important to remember. Again, this is by allegedly by a Fulani group that's attempting to engage in some sort of an insurgency in order to create a government. And I just really want to underscore here: terrorism is politics when the political process does not yield any means of change for the people that are trying to bring about social change. Number two, terrorism is a means of political engagement for those who are not interested in compromise. They are acting pursuant to some sort of ideological persuasion, and they want everybody else to be to be on that same ideological persuasion. So when we say transparency in government, when we say government reform, when we say democratizing these societies, when we say free press, when we say invest in schools, invest in girls' education, invest in job creation and job placement, we're talking about creating a reality where terrorism is not the primary means of social and political change.
Yeah, Buhari is under a lot of pressure. He replaced a lot of the heads of his security, and they're working with the community leaders. So let's hope for the best. Second article here coming up on Reuters. Biden launches review of Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, and aims to close it before leaving office.
Mm. How many years have we? What is it?
Sheesh.
2020. I'm not really good at math, but it's been a really long time that we've had
Hmm.
Guantanamo Bay. Again, I remember everyone who is young that there is a song called Guantanamera about a girl from Guantanamo Bay that became very famous by the Buena Vista Social Club from Cuba. Um, and that really should be your primary knowledge of Guantanamo. And then the prison. You'll remember last semester we invited Chaplain James Yee, who was the chaplain of Guantanamo Bay, and then later accused of cooperating with terrorists, and then later absolved of all accusations. Um, Actions like the creation of Guantanamo Bay Prison induce the loss of American power in the world to push for goodness. When you do not follow international law yourself, it is impossible to convince people to follow international law. When you see yourself as exceptional and not having to play by the rules that everybody else has to play by, it's very difficult to convince people to engage in the type of reform that's required. This is the Biden administration saying we are once again committing to the closure of Guantanamo Bay Prison. I must tell you that I was there at the end of the Obama administration, and I was, very close to the person that was in charge of the Guantanamo closure office at the State Department. And I think when President Obama left, there were like they had resolved all the issues except for like 7 people or something. And then the Trump administration came, they reopened the office, they took the word closure out of the Guantanamo office, and they were open for business again. Remember, many of the people in Guantanamo Bay are sent there from secret prisons where they were tortured for their testimony. Some of the people at Guantanamo Bay were the victims of rendition to their countries of origin and the intelligence services of their countries of origin. Then they went to Guantanamo Bay Prison. Many of the people, not many, some of the people in Guantanamo Bay Prison are the victims of being in a neighborhood where 2 people don't like each other. So they tell the American forces that dude over there is a terrorist, you should take him. Much has been written, much has been engaged. This is to signal that instead of pretending like you're perfect, continue to try to improve, continue to believe in the always becoming of your nation and of the ethics of your nation.
I'm interested to see what the negotiations look like when we're going to try to transfer these prisoners out, because I guess by law they're not allowed to be transferred back to the U.S. mainland. So what that looks like, the negotiations, I mean, that's fascinating. Might be something to look into for international law class students.
How about we give these people an opportunity to be heard in a trial? That's probably a good way. I remember that, like after 9/11, we were writing articles about like Osama bin Laden, the people that did 9/11 could be tried and convicted pursuant to American criminal law. There's no need to create all these like extra super duper laws that deal with terrorists. Just deal with them like any other criminal in the criminal justice system. And the argument in those days was you show what America stands for by trying these people in a court transparently and showing that they are, but the Bush administration chose to go the exact other way. Magic, fantasy, war, insanity, democratization, de-Baathification, the whole thing completely fell apart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be a force for good, do good.
Word.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no. I'm talking too much.
No, we're cool. We're cool. Next up, we have from Brookings. Let's see. Around the halls, how should the Biden administration prioritize in a policy agenda that promotes equity for Black Americans? So this article is pretty cool. There's about a little over 10 different
like
opinions,
parameters or areas.
Yeah, from the Brookings staff. And I gotta say, the one that's the most interesting to me is by this Alex Angler.
Mm-hmm.
and he argues that Biden should push to enforce higher standards on artificial intelligence. So pretty much how the Equal Opportunity Commission uses or can use artificial intelligence to go through resumes, analyze things, break like discriminations, and better predict employee outcomes. That one stood out. I mean, they're all very, very interesting, but
Mm.
I never really thought of our artificial intelligence that much in this way. But that's the future, and essentially, even not even so much the future. It's today. You know, it's
Yeah,
happening
AI
now.
is discriminatory because remember, like it originates in data that comes from humans. The best
Mm,
example of this early on was when they built a bot on Twitter, and the bot was like focused on social issues, and it was learning from like the input in Twitter. Sorry, I'm not like, I check my email barely. It was taking, so it was learning, it was AIing, it was
hmm
yeah, learning.
Yeah.
Eventually the bot became a racist misogynist. N words, B words, going at people. Why? Because the bot is learning from us, and we are racists and we are misogynists.
Mm,
Excuse me. So I love that you pointed that one out, J Rod. AI and discrimination. Look, folks, a think tank is a university without students, the professors of which usually have some sort of government or private sector experience that allows them to rise above the rest in trying to guide society forward. Now, think tanks during the Trump administration had very, very little influence because the Trump administration didn't do very much policy. But traditionally, think tanks are the place where ideas are explored, where research is done, where funding is created to try to solve these different problems that we have in society. And I am definitely a human. I'm biased. I think Brookings is a premier institution. Many of the people who work at Brookings are personal friends of mine. I have done work with Brookings and published with Brookings, and it's important for us when you do research for a paper. Yes, I want you to get me peer-reviewed journal articles, but I also want you to show me that you know what the cutting edge of this topic is, and that always is happening at a think tank. Good. So when there's a lot of conversation about race in America, these are ways for us to quantify where we are in order to be able to determine where we're going to go. Can I just give a shout out to Bantam King Fried Chicken and Ramen, downtown Washington, D.C. That's the shirt that I'm wearing that says chicken.
nice.
It's the bombest fried chicken restaurant.
Bantam King, huh?
Bantam King, dog. It's
Check
so
that out.
bomb. So bomb. Okay, good. Let's go to the New Yorker.
Nice. Yeah. At the New Yorker, we have Trump's defense was an insult to the impeachment proceedings and an assault on reason.
Good. Remember, Masha Gessen. Masha Gessen is the person that we said is one of the premier thinkers on Russia, one of the premier thinkers on disinformation, one of the premier thinkers on the manipulation of populations, pursuant to the will and whims of dictators. And here she is again, February 14th, 2021. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody, with a piece about the link between how Trump's defense team came to the second impeachment and how it results as an assault on reason. Remember, ideology is often in conflict with reason. With reason, you come. Disinformation is attempting to create so much chaos that you lose faith in your ability to think through exactly what's happening. So when we say there is an assault on reason, there is an assault on reasonableness, there is an assault on coherence, Masha Gessen is elucidating for us how what's happening in our society is similar to what happened in other societies that have not yet been able to achieve a democratic reality. I think she's at Brookings too, actually. All right, let's do it.
Cool. Washington Post, Pizzagate's violent legacy. The gunman who terrorized the DC pizzeria is out of prison. The QAnon conspiracy theories he helped unleash are now out of control.
Do you remember Pizzagate?
I do. I
Pizzagate
do.
was this idea that there's a pizza place in
Mm.
DC, in Northwest DC, where the Clintons and all of like the people in the Democratic Party were, I don't know, raping
They're,
children or something,
yeah, running some kind of child pornography
basement
ring,
something.
something like that. Yeah.
And then like, you know, when somebody orders a cheese pizza, it means this and it means okay, good.
Hmm.
And we
Yes,
all
yeah.
said, oh, that's a bunch of bullshit. And then this dude got a gun and went and tried to like solve the situation. Good.
Mm.
Why am I pointing to this? Remember that if you're willing to believe in one conspiracy, I can probably sell you other conspiracies. If you are in the business of conspiracy as explanation for reality, you are a prime target for disinformation. You are a prime target for radicalization. So Pizzagate, QAnon, let's create an Islamic State, ISIS, the conspiratorial ambition and conspiratorial thinking lead to radicalization. And that's why when we say critical consciousness, we mean again, Freire, awareness of the reality as is and the structures that result in the reality being what it is. And that really is a process of trying to do what? Of trying to deconspiracize, might be a word, your analysis. Why? Again, because you're a human and you have confirmation bias and you suffer from the need to be in groups and you suffer from the need to be understood. And many of us are not equipped with the information required to see the manipulation that's happening to us by powerful figures. Good.
Yeah, really feel for the other employees too of the pizzeria. You know, the article talks about how some of them have insomnia, some that, you know, years later, just like PTSD, and that the restaurant owner still gets like hate emails, hate letters to this day.
Did you see how
Um,
he took out champagne and they dumped it on there was like a
no,
piece where it says like he tried to deal with it in every single way. The last thing he did is took out a tray of champagne for all the people that were coming to protest him,
mm.
and they took the champagne and they spilled it on the floor and said, how could you face God when you're doing all this child whatever?
And yeah, and a lot of his people ask this guy now that he's released, Welch, well, whether or not he still believes in Pizzagate, whether or not he follows QAnon now, and pretty much his wife now says that he won't answer those questions. So not answering is kind of, you know, raises a red flag that he probably is still
Bro, like
going down these rabbit holes.
man, it's real, bro. People and their beliefs and the emotional attachment to their beliefs and the connection between their beliefs and their identity, all of these things are just so complex.
And one interesting thing about him too is it looked like his call to do this was not really like nationally motivated or like motivated by nationalism. They go into his history, his psychological history about having a brother who passed away, volunteering with youth, even volunteering as a firefighter. So he looks like a person who actually wanted to help people. And as a vulnerable person, he found something where he kind of it fed into this like hero complex where he can kind of be a savior. And so I think there are different reasons people may or may not fall into these kinds of conspiracy theories and things. The first thing we might say is it's political or it's, you know, white nationalism, but there could be a lot of other things too that
Absolutely, bro. This is such an
should be
important point.
studied.
There is no radicalization without personal connection to the narrative. Even if that personal connection is not substantively linked, the loss of a family member, the loss of a dream, the loss of a job, the inability to, like when we were trying to understand what's going on with terrorism in the Middle East, we came up with this idea called waithood. Waithood is the period from which you graduate until you're able to have a house or an apartment that looks like your mom and dad's house or apartment. So here I am sitting with a bachelor's degree, still living at my mom and dad's house, still unable, no way I'm going to be able to get my own pad. Nobody's going to want to marry me if I don't have my own pad, if I can't get this and I can't get that, right? So that disintegration from the mainstream of society, that's traumatic, right? And it causes people to be more willing, I think, to believe in fantastical. We're just using words that aren't really words. In fantastic, ideas. Um, can I just say one more thing? It's important that we always see people who are on the bad end of disinformation campaigns as victims, right? The worst thing you can do is be like, man, you're a dumbass, man. How could you believe this dumb shit? No, these people are victims of very organized, scientific, well-developed campaigns to get them to believe one thing or the other, and to hold them accountable for not being able to resist while our public schools are shit, while half of Americans don't read a newspaper every day, while blah, 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 blah. You really are like dumping on the victim of the reality. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Next up, Washington Post. We have the long arm of the authoritarian state. The reach of authoritarian repression is growing. Now, not even exile is safe, by Mike Abramowitz and Nate Shenkan, published February 3rd of this year.
Good. When we talk about human rights violations, we are often talking about what is happening inside of a state by the government of that state or by some sort of competing authority to the government of that state. Good. When we come to understand how states violate international law, one of the things that we need to remember is transnational reaches of intelligence agencies and governments. And this article really shows the reader different types of the reach of an authoritarian government for its citizens or for people that were born in its territory outside of its arena. It talks about the Chechen government as very, very ruthless. It talks about the Chinese government is only focusing on the people who are influencers. The rest of the people can kind of write whatever they want. It talks about, so it gives you a sense of, when we say human rights, when we say freedom of speech, when we say you have the right to contest these things, this is now the back end of that. How far will the Iranian government go to hold someone accountable for challenging them? How far? This is where governments and intelligence agencies and the mob kind of like the dotted line in between. Like, this is gangster shit. Navalny is the excellent example from a few weeks ago. We're talking about poisonings. We're talking about downing airplanes. We're talking, actually, the best story on this right now is the daughter of the premier of Dubai, Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, and her fight with him, and the activists who just escaped from Saudi Arabia. And they give you what's happening. And then I got this sailboat, and then they jumped on, and they were commandos, and they said, you have to come back with us or else whatever. And then they shot me with like this thing that made me go to sleep. And then I woke up and I was back home in Saudi Arabia, right? The long arm of authoritarian governments, and how hard it is for there to actually be change in a society.
We have a lot to cover here, so we're going to keep on moving. CBS News, 50 years of tax cuts for the rich failed to trickle down, economists say.
Yeah, let's just let it be noted. Let it be noted that trickle down economics is not a real thing. That Reaganomics is not a real thing. That the idea that the 1% hoard and there will be enough crumbs for everybody else that fall down the pyramid, that is a fantastical idea. That is magic. It's ideology of the wealthy and powerful in an attempt to convince those who have been disadvantaged by this system, that this is for their own benefit. That's all we need to say about that.
All right. Twitter. We have a Twitter thread here about the cry laughing emoji and how it was used as a how it is currently being used as a resistance tool because of this I didn't catch his name, this Iraqi Shia leader, politician,
Muqtada
cleric,
Sadr, Muqtada Sadr.
being praised by a singer. And when essentially a lot of Iraqis went to go criticize this thread, he shut off the comments. This is the musician I'm talking about. He shut off his comments, so people still like were able to spam him with the cry laughing emoji.
You know, human creativity and human resilience to survive in oppressive situations is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And this tweet thread is tweet thread, Twitter thread, thread of tweets is really, really, really a great example for students to see how human creativity becomes, you know, the Prophet Muhammad said that the pen is mightier than the sword. How human creativity is how you overthrow oppressors. And this is a great example of it.
Creativity and art. All right,
Oh
let's see here.
man, yeah, you know, El Cid. Everybody should know the work of El Cid from Tunisia. He's a graffiti artist, muralist. He has done the most amazing work since the Arab Spring. Look at what he did in the community of trash collectors who are all Christians in Egypt. It's just mind blowing. Okay, check this out. Mustafa Akyol is somebody I met a number of times in Turkey. He's a Turkish journalist, left of center. He was with the New York Times for a little bit, has moved on to other things. And this is an article that says China's crackdown on Muslims extends to a resort land. Again, remember, there is a genocide right now in China. Right now, there are concentration camps in China against Uyghurs for being Muslim or being Turkic or being whatever it is that we want to call them this week. Good. Sometimes when you go to a place and you're chilling at a resort, you can fall under the misunderstanding that everything is cool in this society. Right? Like you'll meet people that'll be like, I've been to 100 countries. They have been to 100. They've been to 100 Ritz-Carlton lobbies where they had meetings. The extent to which you can know a country driving from the airport to the Ritz-Carlton and back to the airport with a couple of dinners in between is shaky at best. So this is an excellent, he's a Turkish journalist, not like an Islamist, pointing to one of the quirks of being a world leader that's also running a genocide at the same time. One of the challenges is you have to implement your genocidal policies at the five-star hotels, just like you do in the ghettos, right? And the complexity of oppression begins to unfold. It's a great way to see what it looks like on the inside.
Yeah, on this island, it looks like people under 18 are not allowed to learn Arabic, and even the building of like domes is now prohibited because it obviously doesn't align with the traditional Chinese architecture.
Look, you know, I remember meeting Chinese Muslims who were acting like Saudis, and I would tell them, like, why are you acting like a Saudi? You should act Chinese. You're Chinese. Being Muslim has nothing to do with being Arab, right? Like, we're not, there are identity crises among Muslims all over the world. But when every man who is Uyghur and boy who is of age is taken into a concentration camp for re-education, and when government officials are being sent to your house to live with your family to make sure that they're eating pork and make sure that they're drinking alcohol so that you're not, this is a very intentional campaign, very, very intentional campaign. Um, and it's very, very scary. And I hope that the Biden administration follows through on a lot of the promises that they've made here. We're going
Speaking
back to
about,
Brookings.
yeah,
Sorry, I
speaking
cut
about
you off.
the, no, no, no. Speaking about the Biden administration, you're doing something here. We got this article from Brookings that's talking about the case of Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Nayef,
Perfect.
and yeah, talk about a man who's really been a help to counterterrorism, helping the United States, France, before attacks from Al Qaeda. This article here is pretty much not the whole thing, but towards the end, is asking that the Biden administration really helps put some pressure to have him freed and it would be a signal to the rest of the world that like we actually stand by our partners and the people who help us and don't bail on them when, once we've got their help, we don't forget about our allies.
Absolutely. The other thing is, remember, I know a lot of students who fight really hard about racism, but they would look at this article and they see two dudes that are wearing the shimer and they look kind of similar, and they would look away from this article and be like, I don't know anything about that part of the world. Right? You can't tell the difference between these two men because you don't know their pictures, because these kind of people, you don't understand them and they kind of don't exist, right? So when we say the Saudis, there's no such thing as the Saudis. Every society in the world is diverse. Every society in the world has contestation within it for power and for authority. Every society on earth has tribes who are either coming together in alliances or competing with each other. And when the ebb and flow of that changes, who you are as a US government official engaging with that nation state or engaging with that country comes to really matter. Are you somebody that knows the history of Mohammed bin Nayef and what Mohammed bin Nayef did with the United States and the intelligence cooperation and the going against Al-Qaeda, etc.? Or are you someone that believes, no, like the Arabs are the Arabs and let the Arabs deal with their Arab stuff? So it's a really good inside look. Bruce Rydell is the author of this article. He is one of the premier folks from intel and diplomacy that knows the region. His latest book is on Beirut. I really need to get these books before I start a show. But anything Bruce Rydell writes, students should read.
All right. Next, we got from Foreign Policy, why India's Muslims are in grave danger. This is from March of last year. An expert on communal riots says the country may well be witnessing the start of a larger pogrom.
Good. China and India pretend to be modern nation states, and yet they both are run by governments who are actively supporting extremism against minorities within their own societies. China and India will become major challenges for the United States as the Biden administration continues to get going in its efforts, and underscoring Narendra Modi's role in all the way back to Gujarat, all the way back to burning the trains with the Muslims on them, to today, his support of extremism and anti-minority, anti-Muslim violence should always be on the table when we are talking to India. We often fall prey to the idea that diplomacy is an attempt at getting the best of what's possible for each of the nation states. And my suggestion would be no. United States diplomacy is a vehicle for us to push nation states around the world to give their people more rights, to give their people more opportunities, to give their people more safety, to give their people more security, to give their people more freedom and more democracy. So this is a really good article that you have as a footnote when you're talking about our push with Narendra Modi.
Yeah, one interesting little bit of the article that I found also was how some of these Hindu nationalists who were partaking in the protests, they were chanting Jai Shri Ram, which is victory to Lord Ram. And Lord Ram is a Hindu deity who embodies morality, ethics, compassion, and they're shouting this as they're beating people. And it just kind of made me think of how nationalist movements can hijack symbols and create them as their own. It made me think of a video that happened sometime in late 2020, where there was some white nationalists here in the United States bumping Rage Against the Machine. And it doesn't align, right? What they're doing doesn't align. But they kind of take a tool or a symbol that's already common and bring it into their own game for their own use.
Bro, remember when the dude was beating the cop with the American flag? You know what I'm saying? Like when a Muslim blows up a mosque and says it's for God, killing all the people that are praying in that mosque, like this shit. It's the same kind of like root core idea. Yeah. We need more good news stories in this show, bro.
How about that car chase? We'll add that into next week.
Oh, what happened to the car chase? I don't know. I'm gonna figure out what happened to the car chase. All right. The next one, the foreign policy piece. Let me just touch on it real quick, because I know a lot of students don't have access to foreign policy. Foreign affairs, a little bit left of center. Foreign affairs, foreign policy, a little bit right of center. This is an article about how the United States missed an opportunity to stop China's efforts against the Uyghurs by taking China's word for what it says was happening during the Trump administration under the leadership of Mike Pompeo. Good. When America looks the other way, countries do crazy stuff. All right, Rashida Tlaib. Last article, my man. Rashida Tlaib, Congresswoman from Detroit, along with Debbie Dingell, wife of the late, forgot his name. Both members from the 12th and 13th congressional districts in Michigan. And what are they arguing for, my man? They are arguing that water is a human right.
Yeah, talk about shit, water as a right, man. Makes me think of what's going on in Texas right now, and people who are having a hard time with having to melt snow so they have water to flush, for the toilet and even to drink. All the while, freaking Ted Cruz took off to Cancun.
Bro, his kids said they have to go, bro.
Well, the kids make you do it. The 13-year-olds make you do it. You got to do it.
Ted Cruz is like the religious dude that gets caught at the strip club, and then he tells everybody, no, I was preaching. I was trying to get them to stop doing bad things. You know what I mean?
I was trying to get them clothed, actually.
Yeah. No, I was out there like just trying to get everybody robed. Look, water will be the main reason for geopolitical conflict between nation states. One of the best examples of that right now is Egypt and Ethiopia and Sudan and the management of the Nile and Ethiopia's building of a dam. Water is the fulcrum of what's happening here. This guy. Water is the fulcrum of all conflict in the future because of climate change, and because of access to clean water. Here we're saying, hey man, in the United States of America, Every American should be able to turn on a tap and drink water without dying. All
Yeah.
right.
Yep. All
Oh,
right. So next we
that's
got
45 minutes of articles.
45 minutes of uh, good stuff there.
Let's do it, dog. I'm
Knowledge.
down.
Let's see what else. And then if you have students want to learn more about clean water, things like that, you can look into the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, specifically goal number 6. If you end up joining the international studies program at Chapman, you're definitely going to be taking classes on development and challenges to development. So um, it's a cool tool to look at the United Nations website and look at their sustainable development goals.
SDGs, man, those are really important. Really, really, really important. You think we could do this in 15 minutes, like a line on each of the films here?
Yeah, we could shoot it. We'll shoot it fast,
Or
man.
should we just like attach them?
Well, attach them how so? What do you mean?
Like on the actual, like at the bottom of the thing. So just be like, we discussed the articles, but there's also a series of films.
Yeah,
Check out the
yeah,
films. Or
yeah.
should or
Check
should
out the.
we or should we I don't know. What do we
We
should we
could
do?
do that, but we could just quickly give like a minute
Let's rock.
talk on these videos. I think
Let's
there's only
rock.
like yeah, we got it. So the first one is by Vice News. It's titled "Inside the World's Deadliest Migrant Route." Uh, and it talks about this NGO called Open Arms. It's a Spanish NGO that helps Libyan refugees who are trying to make it through the Mediterranean, and really really intense pictures there as far as the film and the cinematography.
It's so well done. It's
Yeah,
so well done.
very well done. Really interesting for a research topic as well to check out some of these NGOs, including the German NGO CI. There's a couple who are doing this, and they themselves are facing prosecution for helping a lot of these refugees.
Wow. It's when they say put yourself in someone else's shoes, technology allows you to do that now. Back in the day we couldn't do that. You can literally look at what it's like to go from Libya to Europe and decide whether it's something that you do for fun or whether it's something that you do because you have no other options. And then think about, like, how do you stop that? Well, the way you stop that is by investing in Libya, by having good government, by having universities, by having education, by having public assistance, by having healthcare. All right.
Next video we have from the New York Times.
People don't understand migrants, bro. People, you know what I mean? Like the idea that, like, to look down upon someone that has the courage to take a journey like that is just ignorance.
Yeah, they're othered, So, and when we do that, it's they don't belong here, or it's like they're not deserving of basic human rights that we can give.
Speaking of not deserving of basic human, the next article.
The next video from the New York Times: How U.S. weapons ended up hitting hospitals in Yemen.
Just very simply, there are no good guys and bad guys. There are humans who do bad things and humans who do good things. Sometimes humans do bad things unintentionally. And in Yemen, the use of drones and the targeting of terrorists led to a lot of unnecessary death in the Obama administration. We in the Obama administration would argue that it was much less than if we would have used anything else other than drones. But how U.S. weapons ended up hitting hospitals with an S in Yemen, really important that you come into the international world understanding and appreciating that we are a nation state like every other nation state. We are not faultless, and transparency is the way to move things forward. I don't know why my email just opened up out of nowhere. All right.
One interesting thing for students of international law classes or international human rights and international humanitarian law class, one topic that they might consider would be what obligation does the United States have when it sells weapons to foreign militaries? and there are these end results. So that might be something to look into for a paper.
That's really good. You know, I wrote a paper in law school. It was a law review article about whether the United States could be held accountable for the war crimes of the Northern Alliance against the Taliban. So if you're in cahoots with a group of people that then commit war crimes, are you can you be held accountable for facilitating that? So it's pursuant to what you just said. It's a great arena for research for sure.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Next video, New York Times: How Bashar al-Assad gassed his own people. This video is a pretty interesting investigative piece that puts together this bombing that happened in April of 2018. Some like Batman level investigation. Really interesting here. Something that for students of the war and terrorism in the media class research topic, or just something that they might want to think about, is just explore the impacts that the Russian media's portrayal has of the chemical attack in Duma, and how does that shape Russians' views about the conflict that's there in Syria.
So brilliant. Not just Russians, people all over the Middle East, because RT is going hard in Arabic. The United States is vilified. Donald Trump is a pendejo. And so the Arab world starts to look to Russia for leadership. And they don't know necessarily that much of what they are consuming is Russian disinformation. So when we talk about international law, there has to be an investigative component to the war crimes or the genocide, whatever it is, crimes against humanity that were, okay, how do we do those investigations? This is one of the ways that we do those investigations, by recreating scenarios, by interviewing people who were on the bad end of mass violence or violent action. And it also underscores that none of this needs to be conspiratorial. If you grow up in a society where the press is not free and you don't have access to all of the books that are in the library, and you're being fed bullshit from your government, it's easy to live a life where everything is conspiracy. One of the benefits that we have is that it doesn't need to be conspiracy. It's very clear. Bashar al-Assad gassed his people. He did it in cahoots with Russia. Russia was engaging in a full-on disinformation campaign. At the same time, Iran probably approved it on some sort of a level. Like, it's important for us to see mass violence situations not like they're movies, but they are real situations involving real human beings who are suffering at the hands of nation states playing geopolitical games. Because Russia wants a base in the Middle East. Or whatever reason.
Next video, we have 20 years after the Rwandan genocide.
What does it look like? What does it look like? One of the comments on this article is, all my family was killed in one day. Only I was able to escape when I was 14. Now I am grown up with no family. That's the first comment on this. What does it look like 20 years after a genocide? Do things become clearer? Do we have a better understanding of how this came to be? Do we have a better understanding of genocides? Do we have a better understanding of post-conflict resolution? Do we have a better understanding of how courts and how culture, here we talk a lot about the gacaca process, and the gacaca process is translated as justice on the grass. And the idea is that we all sit in a circle, and the person who's accused of the crime is in the middle of the circle. And we talk, and that person apologizes, and there's some sort of like healing. And then here there are people who don't want to be a part of that gacaca process. So how do we deal with genocide as the decades move on? We're now 20 years later.
Absolutely something to definitely consider for this. Human rights students, go back and look at the legacy of the Truth and Reconciliation Commissions, and compare them with the gacaca courts, and highlight those cultural differences. And
I like that. I like that. South Africa examples. I like that. Very great.
Next video we have is from 2019. El Chapo found guilty by jury in Brooklyn federal court. My God, you look at this guy's eyes. He looks like Lil Durk. For those of your viewers who
Little
know who
Dirk.
that is, yeah.
Yo, at the end of the day, terrorist organizations, drug cartels, exact same thing, function very, very similarly to each other, very similar ideas of what's possible and what's not possible. The difference is that one is attempting to break a political reality of stability, while the other is attempting to break a legal or market reality of stability. Why are we highlighting this? Because of the idea of the conflict of laws. If you are a Mexican drug lord and you are tried in the United States, what allows us to try somebody like that in the United States? Is it because of permission? Is it because of their criminality being interconnected with U.S.? Why would El Chapo be held accountable? That's really, really, really important for us to understand the law. When we say international law, there are many, many different bodies of law that are competing for authority or supremacy against each other. And it's important for us to understand, how do you bring someone who has killed thousands of people to justice, to actual real, like, catch you, try you, etc. One option is the international courts. Another option is nation state courts.
The psychology is interesting, but it's not that hard to understand of why people support or love or or even enamored by such a person who represents the underdog. He represents somebody who's rags to riches story. And we're so, I say we, but people are so willing to overlook the fact that he's overseen hundreds of thousands, millions, potentially deaths, tortures, disappearances, kidnappings, beheadings, all of these disgusting things, families being torn apart. But he also kind of symbolizes how I think the global South is, if any way, can compete with the global North. Like the global North traditionally was able to become developed, quote unquote, because it overexploited the global South. And so now a lot of people who study, development, they say, well, how can the global South ever catch up? And they say, well, it needs to be this, it needs to be that, or they say, just follow the roadmap of the global North, and you'll become developed, you'll become successful. But that would require them to exploit. If they were to do what the global North did, exploit the global North. And this is kind of one way of doing that. You find a weakness, drugs, just one example, and you exploit the hell out of it. And I think that also, on a kind of more subconscious level, is what people like from the global South. They're just people who are impoverished and who don't have money, and they glamorize. They see him, they just think the life of glamour and luxury.
It's look, I mean, because why do you start a drug cartel? I mean, you start a drug cartel because the available means of business are not attainable to you because you're indigenous, or because you're not from the right family, or because you're looked down upon in whatever. Like, especially like Latin America, Central and South America are extremely diverse places. Like, our problem in America is we think, oh yeah, Pablo Escobar, El Chapo, I don't know. It's like, so over there they got drug problems, and those people got terrorism, Islam problems, and those people got whatever problems, and that arrogance and that dismissing of the lived reality of other human beings is poisonous. It's cancerous to your spirit and to your teams and to the people that you lead, right? Like, we really want to understand the intricacies of how bad things happen and how to stop them from happening, and that requires for us to really not respect what people do, but respect people's subjectivity.
Yeah,
People are
everybody is a
smart.
different.
People are not dumb. They don't. Excuse me.
Salud.
You don't join. Thank you. You don't join terrorist organizations because you're dumb. You don't join drug cartels because you're dumb. You join drug cartels because you think that you're gaming the system. Okay, so what if we create a reality where you can be a part of the system and change it? All right. I love this next one.
Our neighbors committed mass murder. Here's what we did.
So
The New
good.
York Times.
So good. So here, what are we talking about here? Chile or Argentina?
Argentina.
Argentina. What if you lived in a society that is in a post-conflict situation, but justice has not been done to those who were complicit in the mass violence that existed before? Well, one of the things that you can do is engage in a non-violent movement where you bang on pots and pans in front of people's homes and make life very uncomfortable for them. Um, Latin America is the number one part of the world where women suffer from femicide. Women are killed for being women. Women are killed in the region more than in any other part of the world. And one of the reasons we should highlight these stories is women are also the primary source of solutions, the primary source of social action, the primary source of bringing about social justice in realities where they are the most oppressed. And it's important for us to highlight examples of nonviolent but effective political action that attempts to reach hearts and minds to shift their perspective and to move forward. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. You got to watch it. It's a beautiful film.
Next video, Bob Marley as Zimbabwe independence in 1980.
Bro, I feel like people don't understand. Like a lot. Is it me or are people not like tracking Bob Marley in this generation or what's going on, dog?
No, people for sure do. Yeah, I mean, he's kind of been like, I don't know, Western American culture has kind of made him synonymous with marijuana. So I think when people think of Bob Marley, a lot of young people, they think Bob Marley, they just think weed, let's get high, whatever. But no, what this man actually stood by and lived by.
Oh, bro, was definitely not about partying or
Mm,
getting high. This is like
mm,
one of the most serious people to ever live. And here we see an excellent example of the role of art in conflict resolution, the role of art in bringing together political players. Bob Marley did it in Zimbabwe, or what was Rhodesia, and he did it again in his own country in Jamaica. He I was listening to Stephen Marley this morning. Like the philosophy of Bob Marley as it was articulated during his life is still one of the clearest ethical compendia that have been created in our time. Unambiguous in the stand for justice and freedom and human rights and equality for all people. So it's if you're 18, if you're 19, if you're 20, check out what Bob Marley did in what has now become Zimbabwe.
Vice News, Italy's Mediterranean mass grave.
Another story about migrants.
Mm-hmm.
Another story about migrants. Now look at it from the other side. You saw it from the side of the migrants. Okay, good. Now look at it from the side of the European nation state that's dealing with this reality.
Let's see. Moving right along. Myanmar's military grants amnesty to more than 23,000 prisoners. This is from Al Jazeera.
When you get accused of genocide, one of the things you could do is just let everybody go home. Oh, it's cool. Just kidding. I was just kidding. Let everybody go home.
That's going to be a lot of paperwork. You know what? Let's just say you're sorry.
Yeah. The somebody's comment, the military will be releasing criminals and arresting students and educated people only. The government in Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, that whole narrative is going to be one of the narratives that the Biden administration really manages, and it's important for us to keep tracking. Let's just keep tracking what's happening in this story.
From France 24, we have Tunisia, 10 years on, a bittersweet legacy for the birthplace of Arab Spring. This is from just a little over a week ago.
Arab Spring color revolutions in Central Europe, it's important to track what happens after people rise up, what happens after people try to bring themselves freedom, what happens after people try to get democracy.
So
You were going there to just like check out the art.
just to look at art, man, just to
Good
walk
for
around.
you.
Actually, a second cousin of mine runs the place. And I went when I first moved over here to my apartment where I live in now in Orange. It was like one of the first things I did because I saw him at my grandpa's funeral, and I have a big family on my mom's side. And we just started talking, and I was like, "Yeah, I just moved to Orange, and I go to Chapman, blah blah blah." He's like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "You should come to OCMA." He's like, I'm
Mm.
running it right now, and this and that, blah blah." And I was like, "All right,
Awesome,
cool."
dude.
So yeah, I went, I checked it out, and yeah, I mean it's great, but you know, man, just I think it was Dali or maybe it was Picasso. I don't know. Somebody said that art scrapes the dust off of everyday life or some shit like that. But you know,
Mm.
it's just like a lot of people who are working from home and doing things from home. It's like you kind of want to go out and see other things and like
Amen.
colorful things. It just you know just kind of change the way you look at life and how you think, and only the way that visual art can, you know.
Bro,
But yeah, there's
visual.
some really cool things
I
over there.
remember one day in the quarantine, I mean, Yasmin and I went out to like some parking lot dinner with some friends out of our trunk or whatever. And
Mm.
I was just looking at the buildings. I was like, babe, look at these buildings. They're so amazing. And it's like, at the mall, you know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah,
oh, wow, this is
yeah.
amazing.
No, architecture's sick, dude. Architecture's really cool. There's one show that I got into on Netflix over the past like couple months or whatever. It's called The World's Most Extraordinary Homes,
Mm,
and architecture is cool because I mean it is its own art. You know what I mean? But
mm.
yeah, that's one of the coolest things I like to do, even like when I travel, is to look at like homes and like old homes too. Like in Whittier, the historic district, they have some really cool looking houses,
Yeah,
like
they do.
Victorian style kind of
Whittier's
stuff.
dope. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Oh, I got Whittier
but
stories, but not for TV.
yeah, yeah.
Bro, Tunisia, really important. France 24. In Tunisia, 10 years after the revolution, the transition to democracy has not been easy. Remember, Tunisia is the only country that survived the Arab Spring with a more democratic reality than it had before it started. The Arab Spring was ignited in Tunisia by Mohammed Bouazizi, an educated street vendor who was being harassed or challenged at the local certification office for his cart. And so he decided to light himself on fire, and that ignited the Arab Spring. So, what does it look like 10 years after revolution? What does it look like 20 years after genocide? It's really important for you to study these things. Only if you study these things can you begin to imagine the untested feasibility of what's possible for the conflicts that you are responsible for bringing about change in. Good. Well, are we on the last one?
Now we are.
Dog, that was an epic show, dog.
Hmm.
I'm enjoying it. If it's just for me and you, I'm down.
No, this is great. This is awesome. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Hazara Shiites, prime targets of Sunni extremists. This came out a little over a week ago. Same thing, this one here.
Minority communities, Hazara Shiites, Yazidis, Uyghurs, Rohingya, minority community. A big part of what we are doing in this discipline is holding nation states to account for how they treat their own populations. And when there are lawless border regions like between Afghanistan and Pakistan, when intelligence agencies are working with terrorist organizations like they are in Pakistan, when the military is supporting terrorist organizations, then you have a problem. You have a problem, and these lawless lands must be addressed by the Biden administration. And here, December 2nd, 2021, Hazara Shiites are the example, as they are the prime target. Now, when we say prime targets, we don't mean just killing. We mean killing, we mean kidnapping, we mean mass rapes, we mean mass violence. Why? For their identity. Only for their identity. Good. So, human rights is interdisciplinary. It involves every single corner on the face of the earth. You're not going to become an expert in every single part of the world, but you need to become an expert in the patterns that play themselves out around the world, and an expert in the differentiation between different conflicts, different situations, different nation states, different cultures, different ways of being, and knowing different ways of resolving conflict. Good.
Quote that.
Oh, thanks, man.
Quote, no, for real. Quote. Put that in the fucking the little header shit. The description. That was good. That was gold.
I don't remember it though.
I started writing it down. It started from become an expert in patterns and differentiation, and then I kind of that's where I stopped.
No, that's good. That's it. That's it. That really is it. Like, figure out what's the same and figure out what's different. That's how you're gonna figure out how to solve these realities. All right, my brother.
We did it.
Enjoy the weekend, man. That was bomb, dog. That was bomb.
That was awesome.
I enjoyed it. I'm doing it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You any big plans?
Now my grandparents got both of their vaccines, so I'm gonna go cruise by their house in El Monte and say hi to them. And
Eat.
What else? Yeah, eat. Oh, for sure, eat. I'm gonna go to this place called X Taco. It's on Valley and Baldwin in El Monte. If anybody is from that area, they have amazing tacos.
You know, we should do that, dog. When the pandemic's over, we should take the show to like on the road.
Yeah, that'd be tight.
Bourdain style.
Oh, dude, he's one of my favorite human beings of all time. God bless him. Anthony Bourdain, dude, right here.
The Saint. There it is.
Yep.
There it is. He's badass, dog. God rest his soul. He was badass.
For real.
All right, my dude, J-Rod, I'll see you next week. Thank you for your excellence.